Hey, welcome everybody to Kingdom Talks and the Gil Hodges podcast. I've got Ambassador Nectaria on with me, and she has got a very interesting and powerful story that I'm excited for her to share a little bit about her background. But then we're going to get into some real practical stuff that I think a lot of you are going to want to know about. I'm going to move in this direction. So I'll just say that right up front. It's a very interesting business decision, so to speak. For those of you who are looking at 501c3s and 508s and so forth, Ambassador Nectaria has a lot to share in this area. So, Nectaria, go ahead and share a little bit of your story and background because it's really fascinating and would love for people to understand where you've come from and what you've been doing.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Gil. And if we do run into some device issues, we have various devices we can plot onto in the event that that should occur. So, anyways, it's a pleasure, and thank you again for having me. My name is Ambassador Nectaria, and yes, I was in the Roman Catholic Church as a nun for 14 years, and I came across information that was pretty disturbing, and so I became essentially a whistleblower, and my story is very long, so I'll just keep it to thumbnails. And there's other places to find my materials, but we'll start with that for now. That I was a nun for 14 years. I found out essentially, without judging all Roman Catholics, that the system itself was diseased from the highest areas within. We call it the prelature, from the bishopric all the way up. And it's been that way for a long time. So having gone through that experience and having a very tricky experience, I ended up becoming a whistleblower and letting certain parties that are on the need to know basis about that the Roman Catholic Church was used as a front organization. And it was essentially for intelligence gathering purposes. That's what the confessional was all about. And so basically, my story is fully expressed on the International Tribunal for Natural Justice. It's probably an hour and a half long, September 14th, 2018, where I get into the entirety of my story. And it's got a lot of twists and turns in it, and it's pretty intense. So, but just to let you know, through Jesus Christ and Holy Spirit and Father, I've been able to prevail through all of that.
Wow.
And it's been very positive. So you can go to the International Tribunal for Natural Justice. You could go on YouTube, and under my birth name, Ambassador Nectaria is my baptismal and diplomatic name. But under the birth name, Kiri Bernwer, ITNJ, you can find the full story under oath, where I get into how I've known about the highest levels within the Vatican, about what was going on and how that affected our national security in the United States. So the good side is we are winning, and a lot of good things are happening, but it's been a very challenging path. I can say that much. So we'll just skip into the discussion about how did I come across knowing about these entities, these church entities, the structures, if you will, that operate outside of having a taxable event. Well, back in 2008, a little bit before that, I hired an attorney to build me a 501c3. And I started to hear things on the radio that the 501c3, it gives its rights away, and it gives it to the state. And I was thinking to myself, after the whole whistleblowing experience, I don't want to be jumping back from the frying pan into the fire. So I was like, you know what? I told the lawyer, go ahead and keep the money. You didn't do anything wrong. It's not your fault that I came across new information. So go ahead and keep the money. I'm going to figure out how to build my own 508c1a, which is an unincorporated ministry. And sure enough, after reading the IRS manuals and sitting with my banker, he allowed me to sit behind his desk with him. After reading the code and creating all my own documents, I ended up figuring out how to build the proper structure so that we do not have to have our books open to any government, whether it's to the IRS, to the Secretary of State, to any of those parties, because our gift of freedom was given to us by God, but the Constitution is the safeguard for that. Well, after studying about the 508s, that's when I realized it's really 508 Charlie 1 Apple C1A in the code. And of course, I'll get into that for you in a second here from some Cornell Law School findings that I found on this, which is quoting from Title 26 out of the U.S. Code. So this is this mechanism, the ministry mechanism, or the unincorporated self-supporting church mechanism, is outside of the rules of the state, which means it pre-existed the evolution and creation of the state laws. And this is the very means by which the Freemasons have kept their lodges open, even though they allege to not be a religious entity. On paper, many of them are, because the 508 allows for the strictest measures of privacy. And under 26 U.S. Code 6033, there's no filing requirement. If you file, a 501c3, you do have to file every year with the IRS, even though it's nonprofit. These entities, these 508 ministries, there's no filing requirement because you're a self-governing body. So you're expected to uphold that privacy, or else you'll be in breach of the actual ministry that you're building. So, of course, I only work with people that don't harm others, and they agree that they will not use the ministry for anything illegal, unlawful, or immoral. And so I have a prerogative to do that because of the nature of what government is for, is to protect the innocent. And so we're going to do the same. And so with the 508, what we do is we have a beautiful questionnaire, and you can fill it out. And it basically asks, do you agree to not be using this ministry for the sales of alcohol, tobacco, firearms, or explosives? And everyone says yes. That's very important. And because we want to be sure that we're in compliance. We do not want to be, we don't get our authority from the state, but we also are not here to offend the state. We're not here to do that. And so the 508, all it is a special rule set aside for those who wish to have an unincorporated church or a ministry. And I'm going to read this to you from the Cornell Law School website. I'm just going to put a little bit of this into the camera just so you can see I am reading from a legitimate source here. Excuse my notations at the top and my writing, chicken scratch. So essentially what this is under 26 U.S. Code 508 Charlie 1 Apple, 508 C1A. I'm going to read you very important aspect of this that indicates that there are exceptions to having to file with the Secretary of State. All other nonprofits must do so, except for, here it is, it's called under C, exceptions. It says 1A, mandatory exceptions shall not apply to A, churches, their integrated helpers or auxiliaries, that's the Latin word for it, and conventions or associations of churches. So if you're an association of churches, convention, or integrated auxiliary, or a church that's unincorporated, there is the mandatory exception. You do not have to file with the Secretary of State to get approval from them in order to exist. So this has been on the books. And of course, you can find it yourself, 26 U.S. Code subsection with the little squiggly marks. It looks like two little S's, subsection 508, in regards to special rules with respect to section 501c3 organizations. So this is the subparagraph underneath the 501c3, which most people know about that. So essentially, with your 508, what it does is it provides you with a bank account, should you work with us, that does not have to, you can still receive tax-deductible donations. So anybody who contributes to your church or ministry, they will receive a letter from you. Of course, we teach you how to do that and do it for you. So anyone who contributes, let's say, Gil, you're opening your ministry and you're gonna, have special events at your land, and people want to donate to that cause, you can go ahead and provide them with a special receipt that says, hey, look, you gave us a donation. We want to give you credit for that. And they can take the letter, go to their CPA, and make sure that they get that tax deductible credit for contributing to you, to your ministry. So,
Okay. Yeah. And that,
so
by the
it's
way, I'm believing that by the time this airs, that I will have my land closed on in Mississippi, and so that is what I'm intending to do, is create a retreat center there, an eco village. Super excited about it. And if by chance for some reason it didn't close, well, hey, there's going to be something else that will come up eventually. But definitely expecting that it'll be closed by the time this airs, and that's going to be something I will be moving on. So setting up a 508. I already have Kingdom Equipping Center, which is under a 501c3 currently, but we will set up the new ministry under a 508, and it's definitely going to be quite a bit different in the what it's meant to do. But I can get into that some other time. I'm waiting to actually close on the land, and then I'll be airing some shows where I'll share what we'll be doing there. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to working with you to do the 508. But you may have a lot more to share, but I am curious. In fact, I know you've got a lot more to share, but I'm curious where and who might be interested in actually setting up a 508. I'm in the ministry category, but what are some ideas that you've seen where people have opted for a 508 that maybe, you know, not on people's radar, but actually could be? Are there any categories of that nature?
Thank you for asking that. Excellent question. A lot of people are upset with the churches. There was expectations in certain churches. A lot of them have fallen short of those expectations, especially in light of 2020.
Hmm.
So essentially, what I've been able to do is in my interviewing process, when an applicant will reach out, of course, we have to make sure that there's no outstanding obligations or duties to the IRS, that they're all in honor with the IRS, because we don't want the ministry to be attacked. Okay. But
Yeah.
if you have no IRS debt that you're dealing with, then certainly, you'll go through our questionnaire, and if everything's A-okay, then what we're going to do is ask you a bunch of different questions about your mission statement and what your vision is. So I've been helping people with this for probably about 20 plus years. If you add everything all together with the field of laws, the laws that I've been studying. So essentially, there's people within permaculture, farming, opening their own Bible study ministries. There's other individuals out there that they were working a normal work, like they had a S corp that was opened, and I asked him, well, what made you open this S corp this way? And he shared his intimate story about how he lost one of his daughters, and he explained what he was able to do to help others by studying frequency and energy. And so I said, wait a minute, this is not, you can turn this into a ministry. You don't have to be dealing with an S corp and then having to file every single year. This is an actual ministry, and you're using a different, in my opinion, he wasn't using the proper vehicle to convey his message to the world, and he couldn't benefit others with a tax deductible, letter. So we were able to switch everything over and have him put that other entity up on a shelf, so there's no fighting with the IRS. It's not his fault. He just didn't know that there was another vehicle that he could use. So that was one of that, one of the, I mean, you name it. If it's like, people they'll call it the hands-on ministries. and things of that nature for energy healing. They've done that. And so what we will do is I'll go through and help them conform their language to that of a ministry. So if you're putting your ministry, your house in a trust or in a ministry trust, what we do is we use the different words to explain that. That's not your house. It's a ministry retreat house. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to change language over, or we're going to confuse our brothers and sisters in the accounting area or our brothers and sisters out there at the IRS. We're not trying to confuse them or raise any red flags. So I do go through some language conformance. That's very important. So it can range from anything that you've seen and I've seen with the land and so on and so forth. Ministries that almost anyone with their special gift that God has showed each one of our hearts. My ministry to help people with this type of paperwork is under True Solutions. It's also under the Diplomatic Mission for the Cygnus, and there's a whole reason for that. It's based upon the Cygnus, the constellation, as you know. So
What was interesting, yes.
no matter what, with even the Amish, let's say the Amish would like to be able to have a 508 so that people can operate in that private membership. They can do so with a 508, and it's completely safe as long as they follow all the rules. And we've not had one person get into trouble because we coach them. We literally hold their hand through the entire process. And when we're opening the bank account with them, we're sitting right there with them at the bank. And that's how I can keep up on what's going on with the bank systems. I can tell, okay, well, Chase Bank changed their rules this year. We need to do it this way instead of what it was last year. So we're remaining in compliance with all the banking rules too. We have to make sure that the banks we're working with are comfortable with what we're doing, and we're only there to help them check off the boxes. So it can range from anything. A lot of people out there into energy healing, so they certainly can use this 508 for that. I'm doing it to help people style the paperwork properly. I'm also using several other ministries for other educational, like online courses. So all I need to do is sit down and talk with you about your vision, and then I'll be able to tell which box you fit into in terms of how that's going to work out. Very precise.
So let's say somebody wants to open up a fitness studio or something of that nature. Is that going to fit in there, or yoga studio, or would any of that fit in there, or is that a big stretch?
If the ministry, the mission statement brings in the spiritual element into the yoga practice, then yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And so
the rules according.
now go ahead. I know we got a little bit of a lag here. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. So the rule is with the Supreme Court rulings, if someone believes in a pink bunny rabbit for their religious beliefs, there's no way that the IRS or anybody could step in and say, well, that's not a proper religious belief, because the Supreme Court upholds our freedom of religion. So
Okay.
in the ministry, the only thing we're using the IRS for is to procure the proper banking means necessary to open the accounts.
Got it. So somebody could stretch this pretty far, and if it's what they really believe legitimately, then use the 508. Very interesting. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But obviously, if you're doing a church or a ministry of any type, I'm wanting to do a retreat center for, helping people find freedom, and even finding freedom from religion, which is a ministry that I have. It's spiritual freedom, helping people find their true spiritual identity. So that obviously I think fits quite well with all of that. Now, let me ask you another question, because with the 501c3, that's a church, it's a corporation, so to speak, and it pays me as if, it's a separate entity that pays me, and I get a W-2. How does that work with 508?
There is no W-2. Absolutely none. Why? Because when you're integrating with a form, the W-2 form basically has you agree that you are, according to their laws, a citizen of the United States, meaning a U.S. citizen, which is out of the District of Columbia. So you're under a covenant that says that you do owe taxes because you willfully stepped into that jurisdiction as an employee of the United States, which in essence, you're really not an employee, but that's what you signed up for without knowing it.
Okay.
So everything
So
is done private contracts. There's no W-2s. There's none of that. Now, if in some instances, when we open a ministry, there are some companies that seem, I've never been forced into this, thank God. I think because they understand that I know my stuff. But one other party just recently approached me and said, well, look, they're not accepting, if I want to sell, if my ministry wants to sell Young Living, for example, or whatever, make up the company, they're issuing a W-9. Well, I have a way that we do fill it out, but it's under duress, because if you don't fill it out, they allege that they're not going to pay you. So there is a way to do it diplomatically without engaging in a fight, and everybody stays comfortable. The CPA of the company stays comfortable. We stay comfortable because we're not committing to fraud on the document. We're saying we're only signing this because if we don't, we won't get paid. But that's the only instance I've ever heard of that. All of my 20 years, I've never had to do that. All the companies I work with, even recently within insurance, a health insurance, they completely understand my position and never forced any forms on me. So
wow.
that was the
Okay.
first one.
So in this position, then, I'm assuming from what you've said that obviously going through a 508, you're not paying any taxes whatsoever. The 508's not paying any, you're not paying any, there's no taxes being paid, which would then also mean that there would be no Social Security. If somebody's interested in that and wants to have a Social Security check, when they get to retirement and so forth, they're not going to have that if they've done a 508 their entire life. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's a downside, but at the same time, you're not paying taxes. So if you manage your money better, then that's quite a bit of money. It's quite a bit. Hey, God gave us choice. It's a two-edged sword. It's on one side, it gives us the ability to love, truly love, and on the other, it gives us the ability to do evil. We are able to peel back all the baggage, the garbage, the trauma, the wounds. Down inside, there's a person who wants to be loved and cared for and belong. Love never fails. God does not fail. Yeah. So what's he want to do? And to me, it's pretty clear. He plans to redeem everyone. He wishes and desires that everyone would be saved.
For deeper dives and information on the salvation of all and no eternal torment, check out the Gil Hodges podcast on kingdomtalksmedia.com.
And if one also wishes to obtain special kind of insurance as the minister of the ministry or as an officer of the ministry, they can do so. They can do so, and they can live off the dividends on that insurance. And I've spoken with other insurance agents, and they're fully understanding what I'm talking about, and they've done it. So that's not a problem. There's always a way to, in my opinion, to replace the Social Security element, at least within this sector.
Yeah, so you would have to take action on it. I mean, if you did nothing, you would have nothing. Obviously, you would have nothing at your retirement if you didn't invest into something somewhere somehow. But that again is money. It's a lot of money. I know how much it is because it's been a battle with taxes in anybody who's in business. Even if you're not in business, some people, get W-2'd and they still wind up in tax trouble. So it's interesting. And you're not getting all of that back. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
They're investing, taking out part of it.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting and actually very powerful. All right. So somebody who has a 501c3, can they switch to a 501(a), or is it totally done, and or how's that work?
The Lord God says that we cannot mix a giraffe with a dog. They're two different species.
Yeah.
So we do not mix the species because that's called commingling. So what we do is we can make a distinctly separate entity that's autonomous from the 501c3, but there's no connection between them, which is very important. We don't mix apples and oranges.
So
Very
you
different.
can't convert.
Why? Because the jurisdictional and the banking. Say that again.
I'm sorry. That lag is
What
a
was that?
challenge, but I was saying that now I forgot what I said, but you cannot convert one. That's what I was saying. You can't convert a
That's it.
501c3
Correct.
into a 508.
That's
Correct.
like
Okay.
mixing angels and humans together. We can't do that. So we don't want any Nephilim hybrids around
Wait,
here.
yeah, I was gonna say, well, which one's the angels? Uh, anyway,
The
all right.
ones
So
that
keep.
felt
I
their
know you
fist.
got, I know you got
So
a lot more to share. Go ahead.
so the other thing too that I've been helping people with is creating, using the ministry as an estate planning structure. And it's extremely brilliant, the process. And I've worked with a CPA for 5.5 years, and he said to me, the technology you're using far surpasses all of the technologies I'm using to help people save money. And he's the one who actually got me clients. So it's interesting. I still studied under him because I want to have compassion and understanding as to what other people experience. Because me, as a nun for 14 years, I never had to deal with it. So I wanted to understand, how does this work for people that have to file every year with a 1040 and study about the trust and how they file the 1041s and the differences and all this stuff. So I've devised a plan that works, that's legal, lawful, and moral and upright, where you can use the ministries as an estate planning tool that far surpasses the estate planning tools that are, let's call it, in the public sector.
Okay. Okay. Well, then here's a question then. So most of my life, obviously, I've been in the system and I've paid taxes into the system. Now, there's a certain amount that when I reach a certain age, I'll be able to start pulling that out. But if I make this switch, I'm assuming it would not affect that. But from this point forward, if I made the switch, or I, this new land that I'm going to be purchasing and the retreat center, I put that under the 501(a), then from that, I would be operating in this new field, but I would still have the other. So I'm not going to lose that, if I'm understanding correctly, because that would be a major, that'd be a major minus.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, you need to, you're wearing different hats. So when you're dealing with the Social Security side, you just continue doing what you're doing. But when you're dealing with the ministry, you're wearing another hat, and you'll keep those files sequestered. You'll keep them in separate folders, so to speak.
Yeah.
So there's no confusion between that.
And does the 508 still pay? In this case, would it be paying me as an employee, or
They
how?
they don't call you an employee, because the definition for an employee, according to the tax code, has you as a citizen of the District of Columbia. You're not.
Okay.
So what the word will use for that's proper, just like the priests and the nuns and all of that, they use the word stipend. So
Okay.
there'll be a stipend that will go to you, or a donation that will go to you for XYZ purposes of carrying on the ministry. So all this is adopting new language, so you're in compliance with the way how you're operating your ministry. You're complying with the manner of operating a ministry versus a corporate structure.
Yeah, I do wish I'd known this a long time ago. And the thing is, people had presented the idea of the 501(a), but there were others that presented the 501(c)(3) as the way to go. We wound up going that direction, but obviously there was a lot of information that was not given to me at that time. So I'm wondering, is there a gray area in all this? Is there something that is there a reason why some people would choose a 501(c)(3) over a 508? Because to me, it makes no sense that anyone would have choose a 508 versus a 501(c)(3).
Well, if we sleep on our rights, we have none. That's the problem. And so it's the design of education that's caused us to become aware of one sector, whereas the privileged class tends to know more about these areas. And the reason for that is because, like I said, the Freemasonic lodges know all about this stuff. All right. And so they're not going to close off the remedy because they themselves have been using it all along to, it's still legal. It's okay for them to do it, to use this method. But that's what they've been doing. And they didn't want the rest of others to know what exists. So instead, we don't have to get upset. We're just thankful that we can finally know, all right, so this thing does exist. And the other reason someone might prefer to use a nonprofit 501(c)(3) is because they can build credit lines. They can get access to maybe a Dun and Bradstreet number, or they can start building up a profile so they can, ledger against borrowing in order to build up their ministry. I have figured out a way under the 508 how to do so, but in concept, I'm not comfortable with promoting that because the book of Proverbs says, do not be a surety for a stranger or you will be injured for that. So we're trying to teach the concept that with a 508, you don't want to be in debt because the debt is servant to the lender. So I don't judge people that need to do that. I get why they're doing it. So, but that would be the main reason I think that some people might need to use the 501(c)(3) in order to build up the credit profiles.
Okay.
For the
Okay. Well, that makes sense. All right. So continue on. What are some other things about the 508 that you think are important that people should know?
Well, I've seen it in Forbes magazine that, and this is in the PowerPoint, for those who do wish to engage with us, all participants who engage with us, the reason we've remained safe is because each one that approaches us will sign a non-disclosure agreement and an agreement that if they are a part of some sort of alphabet agency, I don't treat them differently, but they do agree they're leaving the badge at the door and we're operating together on a private capacity, and that they're not to use the information that I'm sharing with them against anyone. They're supposed to use it in compliance with our commitment as responsible stewards of the knowledge. So, so anyone who wishes to engage with us, they'll reach out to you, and then, we'll have a link for them to get in, and we'll have a half an hour free consultation as long as they don't have boo-boos with the IRS.
Yeah.
And so basically in the Forbes magazine, I've seen, and I've, tested this myself with a couple of my ministries just to see that when you're dealing in the crypto world, the crypto is also outside of the tax. Why? Because under the laws, as so far as I see them today, it could change tomorrow, but today, this is what I'm seeing so far, is that the crypto becomes property of the ministry. As long as the crypto you're engaging with is outside of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and they're in agreement that, you're not involved in any kind of securities, trading, etc. So there's a way to maintain having your crypto, receiving donations, using the QR codes and using, having people donate using crypto. That's totally acceptable. As far as giving them a tax deductible gift letter for that, I haven't done it yet. So I don't know how to help people with that, but you might have to put in, we want to give a tax deductible donation letter, because they donated in the form of crypto to blah, blah, blah. But I haven't done that yet. But technical speaking, the crypto, from what I understand and from what I've read, it becomes property of the ministry. Therefore, it's by virtue of its special banking numbers, it's outside of the taxable event. Now, you do have to KYC. You have to make sure that you're, verifying with the different, wallets and all that other stuff. And wherever the crypto is being held, they're going to ask you to please make sure it's you and that nobody else is coming in the name of the ministry. So you'd have to KYC. But because of the way it's all set up under your ministry, from what I've been studying and seeing for the past 3 or 4 years, there's no taxable event. So it's just accumulating under the ministry name.
Okay.
I'm not an expert, and I do have to preface, I'm not offering legal, tax, medical, or financial advice. Everything I'm sharing or tax advice. All I'm sharing with you is my own personal experiences. That's all.
Yeah.
So I can't say I'm not a CPA. I'm not a tax IRS agent. I'm just someone who's been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah, so I'm going to just mention to everybody right now that if you're interested in any of this and if you'd like to talk to Nectaria, then email me. Is that what you would like? Okay, yeah, we'll have you email me at info@kingdomequippingcenter.com. Email me there, and I will pass the information on to Nectaria, and that will give her all. Yeah, make sure you include your information, that probably a phone number and so forth, if you want her to reach out to you. And anyway, it sounds pretty fascinating and reliable. And how many of these have you done over the years? How many people have you helped do this?
Probably about 60.
Yeah.
60 accounts.
Okay.
But I've been at it for a long time, and it's been me. I'm doing all the paperwork. I'm doing the whole thing. I'm sitting with them at the bank. I'm on the phone with them. I'm coaching them. But thank God, I've been able to train one other individual who's he's diligent. So I like really good quality. So it's more about the quality instead of the quantity. I want 100% success, and everybody who does this to be completely safe and comfortable and not draw outside of our lines. That's the key.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. So now there's some other things that you do. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how much time you have or we have. Let's go maybe another 10, 15 minutes. But there's some other things that you do. You've talked about, and kind of they're different. So why don't we just share just some teasers about what it is you do and why you do it? And one is the sovereign citizenship, things of that nature. You've shared a lot of things. Why would anybody want to do this? What is it, and why would anybody want to do it? And just brief. Don't need to go into detail, because we can do another show if there's interest.
Okay.
So here's the thing: anybody listening, if you have more interest in what she's about to talk about, let me know, and we'll do another show at some point. We'll go down some of these other roads. But I just wanted her to give a little teaser of some of the other things that she does for people. So go ahead.
Absolutely. And we will correct the record, because then it's not your fault. How are you supposed to know? But I don't engage with those 2 words, sovereign citizen, because those 2 words, when they're combined, Department of Homeland Security looks at you as a terrorist. Okay.
Ooh.
So we like to be friendly. We like to be friendly with the government. We're not, we don't want to cause any trigger marks for them. So what we do is we legitimately people. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. So we assist people who wish to have the U.S. Department of State recognize their status as a state national instead of a U.S. citizen, which under the law, 8 U.S. Code 1101, there's a whole long list of them. You could read them all. It basically says, and we could do a show on this, that a U.S. citizen is a citizen of the District of Columbia. That's not what you think it is. That's not what I thought it was years ago. But what we're doing with the passport is using the government manuals to correct our status in the system so we're no longer the surety for the national debt. And if people want more information on that, how are we surety for that national debt? I get into that. I provide some teasers on YouTube, but I have to be really careful on YouTube. So YouTube under Ambassador Nectaria, yes, there's a space in between, Ambassador Nectaria, you can go in there, type in passport number 1, passport number 2, and watch those videos. And I show you the concepts behind what we're doing. And we've had, like I said, 100% success because we hold people's hands throughout the whole process. Some people get nervous and they're scared when they walk into the Department of State, and I don't blame them. So the part that makes what I'm doing unique is I brought in the element of using the Federal Register, that the federal, the law on the books is that the Bible is the word of God. The government said that, not me. I didn't say that. The government said that. The United States government said it. So if the U.S. government is saying it, then I'm going to use their laws and their rules to have me recognized as an ambassador for Christ and as a state national. And what that does is it procures, first, it changes the relationship of who I am in their system. So I'm no longer some kind of a piece of property as a result of the 1933 Emergency Bank and Relief Act, which I get into that. I don't want to overwhelm here. And so I also, when you sign the non-disclosure agreement and the other agreement, I show you the videos that can't go on YouTube as an introduction. So it's a 3-hour video. And I ask everybody to watch the movie Jupiter Ascending before you engage with these videos so you can appreciate the full meaning of what I've done to uncover and decode the movie. The movie was executively produced in 2015 by someone inside the Treasury, the U.S. Treasury. And he wasn't in the Treasury before 2015, but afterwards he was. So in my opinion, I've decoded the movie and I show you how to get your status the way Jupiter Ascending did in the movie, but in the true understanding, not the other twist-ups that happen in the movie. They can't tell you the whole truth. They can only give you snippets for you to figure it out on your own. It's called public disclosure. Public disclosure of a secret but true policy, but an open but false policy that, oh yeah, you're free. You're all free, but you're U.S. citizens. No, U.S. citizen is property of District of Columbia, a government that was formed in 1871. All of this is reviewed. Once you see the 3-hour video on the passport and how I prove it's not just a theory, I literally show you the proof that I can't put on YouTube. Once I show you the proof, then you have the choice to join our workshop, our online workshop, and to covenant with us or contract with us. And then you get the access to the 7.5 hours of videos and our coaching sessions for X amount of time, depending on which plan you pick. Then we walk you through the process and how to free yourself. And yes, the databases are changed in your favor when you finish this process.
Okay, so I guess the question that remains is why? Why would I or why would anybody want to do this? Because there's obviously a reason, because there's some people that I'm assuming a lot of people that have done it, but go ahead.
There are a lot of people that have done it, and there's a unique style that I put together, bringing this process together. So obviously we help people who don't believe in Jesus. We understand, we get that. All right. So we have a special process just for that. We have a process for those who wish to bring in the ambassador for Christ's part of it. That's obviously where I'm going with it. And then for those who I back engineered what happened to the Canadians. So we were able to get the Canadian nationals to do the same thing. So successfully. And we have testimonies to the effect on this matter. So basically, why would I do this and why did I do it? It's because I was highly offended when I had a Series 7 broker prove to me, when they searched certain indexes and found my birth certificate was being traded. I'm not happy about that. I am not a commodity to be traded. That stands in the face of slavery and peonage, Amendment 13. That stands in the face of who I am under Most High. So instead, I'm not going to get upset about it. I'm going to fix the problem. And what's really beautiful is in the videos on YouTube, I also illustrate on passport number 2, how I told the Department of State I was very upset with them for the way they entrap people with their certain language. And the Department of State, within 3 months, changed the language and the OMB number on the form so that they're avoiding the traps. But we still all have an obligation. If you were put into a covenant that you didn't know about, it's our obligation to first find out if there is a covenant and then to get out of it. So if someone went and stole your name without you knowing, and then you finally found out that someone stole your name and they're opening property out, and then what's worse is they're purchasing properties under your name, and then they're doing evil things in the property under your name. That's not okay. That's not okay. So that's exactly what's happened here. Okay. And I don't get into that into too much depth here, but definitely in the class, you get the full scoop on what's going on with firsthand evidence. All right. So because I've had the knowledge to know what's going on, we've been able to not only help one by one each soul that approaches us, but we're having more and more influence in changing the brokenness of government. So it's my way of standing up and saying, that's enough. You're not trading me and I'm not a slave. And anyone who funds towards this operation, it's all tax deductible anyway. So you're contributing to us to having work. So, we've done it for homeschooling families. We've done it for, you name it. We've helped a lot of people out with this status. And it's tremendous. The kids are now understanding what's going on, and they're awake. They're not going to put up with what's Psalm 78 says, tell the dark secrets of old to your children so they don't fall in the same trap. Well, with all the stuff that's happened since 1933, the government has made contracts with fallen angelic beings. That's why the gold was taken away from the people under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. All of that is discussed on we're doing is we're reversing the curse and we're saying no. And the more and more that join us, it's ringing the bell of freedom, and we're holding them to account, but we're first holding ourselves to account by getting out of the system of Revelation 18, where they're selling our souls on Wall Street.
Interesting. Okay.
That's
all right. So how about one more thing that you do for people? If you have anything else, do you have one more thing you'd share that you do, kind of a teaser? And then we're going to go ahead and end this public broadcast, and we're going to go into the deeper dive section where I'll have you share some things that I know are not for public, but our members would probably appreciate learning some of the other things that you are aware of. So anyway, one more thing. Go ahead.
One more thing. Well, if you want to reach out to us, connect@ambassadornectaria.org is the email. You can go into the YouTube video that says Quantum Orthodoxy, Psalm 154. There's a video there where I get into certain prayers that we all pray, and so many of us are joining forces, and we're praying the ancient Psalms. And as we're joining in this collective consciousness, in this effort, like you mentioned, to love one another. I do discuss religion, but it's a different pair of glasses, from a different point of view there. It's not for the purposes of being dogmatic. It's for the purposes of providing people with a historical subset, so they understand, oh, this is where this came from in terms of where the Psalms came from, for example. So if you go to the Ambassador Nectaria channel on YouTube, you can access the video Quantum Orthodoxy. And I think a lot of people are going to find interest in the Psalms that we pray together. If you're on time zones, it's totally okay. And what that is doing is amplifying the signal of love, like what you're talking about. And when more and more of us amplify this signal, the other just, it doesn't exist anymore. So I encourage anyone who wants that particular series of Psalms to reach out, and we will freely provide that to you. And you join our emailing list there. So at connect@ambassadornectaria.org, and we'll be happy to get that information out to you.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, Ambassador Nectaria, I appreciate you very much. Honor you for coming on and sharing what you've shared. Been very good. And I hope a lot of people find it valuable. And you can either reach out to me or Ambassador Nectaria. And just make sure you let people know that if you're reaching out because you saw this show, just let us know that. Let us know that that's where you got the information, because that's going to be helpful in the ministry for what I'm putting together as well. And it's to me, it's a no-brainer. So if you've got a ministry that you are looking at setting up, just doesn't make sense to do the other. If you're good with money, it's a good way to do better than putting your money into a tax system that is not necessarily even going to be there in the next few years. We keep hearing about that Social Security may not even be there in a few years. So who knows? All right. Well, again, thank you so much, Nectaria. Appreciate you and
Thank
honor
you
you.
for having me on.
And it's been a blessing having everybody here. So continue watching. If you want to see the deeper dive, the behind the scenes where we're going to go next, then I encourage you to go over to kingdomtalksmedia.com and become a member there, and you'll be able to get the full story with the behind the scenes and the deeper dive. All right. Love you all. Take care. Thank you. Thank you, Nectar.